Hi there, welcome to the 12 Months Marathon podcast with me, John Hill, the running podcast for the over 35s with Marathon Dreams. A very special edition, episode 35, where I have a very special guest. I'm talking today with Amy Edwards, also known as 403 underscore marathon mom at Instagram. So we'll get that one in straight away. Get over there and get her a follow. Also go to the website 403marathonmom.com for some amazing resources. I'll let Amy talk a bit more in depth about that shortly. But you can follow Amy and you can find a little bit about her, but the shortened version, the reason why I initially came across Amy was first and foremost, it was around the time when I was doing the London Marathon. I was getting a few more followers on Instagram and more people were talking to me, and you just things pop up and you find things. So I came across Amy's profile and I've got a natural affinity and I tend to gravitate to anybody that loses a load of weight because, as a lot of you know, that's where I've come from, my journey way back in the day, nearly 20 years ago. And I've got a bit of a soft spot for that and I want to know more because I'm always interested about how people transform. And I think going from um, being big or I class quite big to marathon, I think is an amazing achievement because it is literally one end of the scale to the other. So as you know, from my journey, I was out of breath doing my shoelace up at 28 and at 47, I've done 14 marathons. So I think I always gravitate towards that level of transformation. So that's why I sort of spotted Amy and thought, yeah, this is definitely somebody I want to speak to and definitely wanted to get on. So, hi, Amy, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for asking. Very well. So, I will. I'll get straight into it. The first thing I just want you to let people know, and you're free to sort of go off as much as you like here. Just tell people your journey and how we found ourselves here.
Okay. Well, firstly, I just want to thank you so much for inviting me. It's really a lovely opportunity.
My pleasure.
Uh,
My pleasure.
yes, it's really nice to chat with you. And yeah, I mean, I guess for me, my sort of running journey started way before sort of our initial, like a year ago, which was when I ran the London Marathon in 2024. And really, sort of my running journey started, well, about 11 years prior to that.
Okay.
Really, I mean, in my Instagram really tells my story of how I had my children and then I lost my weight very quickly and then trained and ran the London Marathon. But really, um, my story of why I ran and the reason still today why I ran starts in 2013,
Right.
really. So then I was sort of in my early 20s and I was really struggling with my mental health. I mean, I'd struggled with my mental health, to be honest, for as long as I can remember. Always had problems with food. At one point, I was really tiny, almost at the point of being anorexic in my sort of teenage years. And then in my early 20s, sorry, I was very overweight,
Mm.
but due because I was really struggling with my mental health.
Right.
And basically, in 2013, I had a very serious suicide attempt. I mean, I'd struggled with my mental health for it being in and out of psychiatric units for years, for about 3 years actually, before my final suicide attempt. I mean, the what I was diagnosed with was OCD,
Okay.
and that was brought on. To be honest, I can never remember a time without OCD in my life.
Okay.
I mean, my earliest memory is like my being sort of absolutely paralyzed with fear because my sister, as a toddler, knocked over my toys in my room, which I'd all sort of meticulously lined up. And I think I then had this fear that something bad was going to happen to my family because of that order.
Right.
Um, and then what happened in 2012 was I was involved in a very serious car accident on the way back from university with my mum, which I then believed because it was on the way back from university that it was my fault and I hadn't been doing my sort of
Wow.
rituals enough. And it then started this, I escalated my mental health and I was very unwell, as I said, in and out of psychiatric units. And then in 2013 had very serious, my final very serious suicide attempt, sorry, and I hung myself. And at that point, I 100% believed I was going to die. Woke up in hospital, was actually really cross that I hadn't died. But then a few days later, got moved from sort of physical health hospital to the same mental health ward I'd been on sort of years and years. And I just realized I've got to do something. And they've been telling me in hospital, like, you've got to exercise, it will help with your mental health. And I just never could bring myself to actually do it. I think I was just like, why aren't you giving me a magic pill? Like, isn't there some sort of therapy? What's sort of getting out and doing some exercise going to do? And I think, I don't know what it was, but I think I was so like shocked that I didn't die. I really thought and I really sort of all the odds were I should have done. So I thought I'll give this a try. And what I did was, because I didn't really have any money, was I started the Couch to 5K program. And to start with, I found it really hard because I was very overweight, and but I just eventually, sort of about week 3, I started loving it. And that was it. I think that was where my running journey began, was that I just loved running, and sort of finished the Couch to 5K, started running a bit more. I then went and trained, like literally in 2014, started my training to become a mental health nurse. And then in 2016, ran the London Marathon for Mind. I ran it in 5 hours, 11 minutes. I was still quite overweight at that point as well. But then qualified as a mental health nurse in 2017. But then I sort of got married, and then had all my children. So, and that then put a bit of a pause on, because I guess working as a mental health nurse, getting married, having all my kids, I had my first, my eldest, who's now 5, I had her in December 2019. And obviously we very quickly went into COVID lockdown. And my husband works absolutely crazy shifts. He's in the police. We had him, like, I think he worked, like, because of the COVID measures at work, I think he worked about 45 days straight. And I was just on my own with my newborn baby, so I couldn't get out for a run. Then very quickly, obviously, then fell pregnant with my second. So I had 4 children, I had 4 children in under 3 years. So, and in the middle of that, relocated 5 hours from home. I grew up in Surrey, and we relocated to Scarborough in North Yorkshire. So it was all sort of really, so my running just sort of took a real pause. I had very high risk pregnancies, especially my final one, which was to my twins. And unfortunately the weight just piled on. And my twins were born in December 2022, and I didn't weigh myself after having them. I mean, I think it was, I'd have been more than what I weighed 3 months postpartum. So, like, on my big sort of my Instagram page, I had this sort of moment. I was a bridesmaid for my best friend's wedding. She asked me to be a bridesmaid even before I was pregnant with my twins. And she bought me this dress, and it was a size 18, because I was like, get me the biggest one that ASOS do. When she was organising the dresses, I was like, sure, I'll fit into it. And I went to put it on. It was about the January. Her wedding was in the March, and it wouldn't even pretty much go over my shoulders. And I was like, it was horrible. Realised I wasn't going to lose enough to fit into it. Ended up, luckily, managing to find the exact same dress still for sale on ASOS. Bought it, and I got this amazing dress lady to sew 2 dresses together. And she even put in sort of special zips because I was breastfeeding my twins. But I sort of, even though all of this, I never really sort of hit me how big I was. And I said, I hadn't weighed myself. And I guess I was in this sort of depths of sort of like postpartum of having the twins. And then I still had like 2 also. I mean, my eldest had just turned 3, and then I had a 1-year-old as well.
And twins on top of that?
Yeah, and then newborn twins on top of that. So it was like, yeah. It was, and then my husband obviously still works, and because we've moved up here, I don't have any help. So I have a Fitbit, and most nights it never recorded I got any sleep. Like, I just lived off no sleep, which is probably why I ate loads of sugar and things, keep me going. But I then went to 3 months postpartum, I went to my best friend's wedding, and I just felt absolutely horrific. Like getting ready, I just felt horrible. But then that I remember coming home and that evening, the pictures coming out on the WhatsApp chat, and I just looked at myself, and it was the first time I'd had pictures really taken of me.
Yeah.
And I was just so shocked at how much weight I put on. And then I threw the dress in the bin, came home, weighed myself, and I was 20 stone. And I was like, right, I've got to do something. And that was when I sort of went on my, well, not sort of, I went on my weight loss journey and I literally just started calorie counting, ate in a deficit, a 1,000 calorie daily deficit, which was worked out by my Fitbit. So I used that to sort of work out how much I burn each day, ate 1,000 calories less than that. And I just started the Couch to 5K again. That was all I did because it was all I had time for. And then by the time the end of the November, so it was just over 8 months.
Would this be 2023? Is this 22?
This is 2023 now. 2023,
yes.
Yeah. So basically, on my page, I am very much like, so I lost 10 stone in under 12 months.
Yeah.
But I actually lost it in just over 8 months, because I obviously didn't start the weight loss journey until 3 months postpartum, and I'd lost it all by the end of the November, and I lost 10 stone. So by the time my twins turned 1, I had lost half my body weight.
Incredible.
Yeah. So, and that was, I'd obviously as well, I'd only ever done the Couch to 5K, and then only run 5K 3 times a week. I didn't start increasing my mileage until the November, when I decided that I was going to enter the London Marathon, or I applied to run for charity. I got accepted to run for Baby Lifeline. And that was when my marathon training began. And that brings me through to April 2024, when I ran the London Marathon again. And I was 16 minutes faster than pre-children in 2016.
Yeah.
So that was like my journey, I guess. And then, it's just been, since then, I obviously ran all summer. I had problems with all my excess skin.
I saw that. Yeah, I did see, because it's full of, some people asked me about that. They were like, you know, what, because that's always a classic question in weight loss. They always say, well, what did you get, any excess skin? So if you don't mind, talk about that.
Yeah, so I had so much all on my abdomen, just hanging down. It was like almost halfway down my thighs. It was rubbing so much. I had to gather it all up and like wear really sort of tight leggings when I ran. And it really rubbed. It was so awful, actually, the marathon. I was like bleeding at the end underneath it. So I had in the September, so I ran the Great North Run in September, and literally a week later I had my muscle. I had very like 8 centimeters muscle separation from having my twins, abdominal muscle separation. So I had surgery to repair that and then remove all the excess skin. So that was in September. And so my running, obviously, and I had complications from that. I managed to catch an infection, and all my wound opened up, and now I've got this massive fat scar down the middle of my tummy, which is pretty horrible to look at, but at least I've had all the skin removed, and because now I'm like free when I run. So that obviously put a bit of a pause on things from the September to December, because I obviously had to build back up again. The end of December, I ran my first half marathon post surgery, and then now I'm back into training again. Set myself a pretty crazy challenge for 2025. I'm doing my first Ironman triathlon. So I have got that booked on the 5th of October.
Which one?
That is Ironman Barcelona.
Okay.
Yes, so that's the 5th of October. But I've got the half Ironman Bolton in June that I'm doing before that, and before that in 5 weeks tomorrow I'm doing the Brighton Marathon.
Oh, you're doing Brighton? Okay, okay, right.
Yeah, so I'm in the middle of like my sort of cranking. I'll do 20 miles on Monday, so I'm in the middle of my mileage upping. That's my last long run, actually, before race. The longest mileage I'll do before race day.
And is the Brighton marathon? Are you using that as part of your training for the Ironman? Does it all fit into the Because when
Yeah,
you're talking Iron Men, you're blowing my brain. I mean, I stop at math
yeah,
and I'm like, as soon as we start adding
yeah.
things on, I'm like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, no, I that's my like so I'm using it as part of my sort of my
right,
gateway. I mean, it's the mileage goes for the running goes up for Brighton, but then it drops for half Ironman Bolton because it's obviously only the run is only half a marathon.
half marathon, yeah.
Um, yeah. So for listeners, the full Ironman is a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and then a marathon at the end, so all after each other. So
Nuts.
I'll do half of that in the June and then the full one in the
Yeah.
October. But it's something I've always wanted to do. My dad, I grew up with my dad always doing, he's done a lot of them, and I've
Oh,
always
okay.
been very inspired by him.
Right.
And I think for me, it just naturally followed on from my journey as in what next, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
I have just loved it's given me a purpose aside from being mum doing all of this.
Absolutely.
And as well, I running and exercise does so much for me mentally. And if I didn't do it, I wouldn't be the mum I am today.
Mm.
I it keeps me well doing all of this and setting the goal. Really, a big thing for me is goal setting as well. And I think, unfortunately, this is why each goal gets bigger and bigger
Yeah, of course.
because once I achieve it, I mean, I don't know what I'll do after after the Ironman.
Let's tackle this first. Let's not scare ourselves.
Exactly, but it just unfortunately gets bigger and bigger because it helps me mentally
Yeah,
and
yeah, of course.
but it's that sort of sense of achievement that keeps me well.
Mm.
But yeah, so I guess that's sort of where my
Brilliant.
journey is really. So
Awesome. Awesome.
yeah, sorry for
Um,
chatting so long
no,
about
no,
it.
that's what I wanted. That's the stuff. That's the good stuff. That's that. I appreciate your open, and I appreciate your openness as well. I think that's good to be, to sometimes to share like warts and all, to give it all, because that's real, isn't it? You're going through the real thing, so it's just amazing that you've come out the other side. So, what was the obviously coming from a bit of a weight loss epiphany background myself? What was the bridesmaid dress thing? Was that the straw that broke the camel's back?
Yeah, I think looking at the pictures, I just realized like you're so unhealthy. It was more sort of the being so unhealthy and like I can't continue this for my children. Like
Yeah, yeah,
I'm risking my health. And I was, as I said before, my twin pregnancy was so risky. Like we were lucky that all of us made it out from the pregnancy alive. And I was like, well, so if that we all made it and you're 3 months on, why are you being so unhealthy? You need to lose lose the weight and be as healthy as you can be to be the mum you want to be and do everything for them and be
yeah,
around for as long as I can. So that was that sort of point of realization. And then I made a decision because I guess a lot of people will ask me, what is your motivation and or what is your reason why? Because I think to actually lose weight and then maintain it, you definitely got to have in your mind your reason why you want to do it, why you want to lose it, and then why you want to never go back to how you were before. I always think it's a bit like an alcoholic or a drug addict. Why
yeah,
do you want
yeah.
to
Oh, yeah,
stop and or stop, stop being unhealthy?
yeah,
And I decided at that point that I was going to do it for my children. Um, and I think once I sort of made the decision that I was doing it for them, it just made it so much easier to stick to
yeah,
because I just, if I didn't do it, then I was letting them down. I just couldn't do that. And I think that helped. You know, the initial bit when you're losing weight and you find that the cravings are really hard and you're like, oh, I just want to
yeah.
press the, F it button and just, but because I was doing it for them, it just stopped me from doing that. And then obviously the more I did it, it actually just became a new way of life.
Yeah.
And it's not something I think about anymore. It's just how I live, really.
Yeah.
So
You
yeah.
mentioned the twins. Is that the reason why you did the charity thing for London? Is that you said you,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Good
yeah.
to know,
So
yeah.
yeah, for baby Lifeline, they're a
Right,
mother and baby charity. Yeah, and they raise a
right,
lot of
okay,
money for maternity. Yeah, yes,
right,
because my obviously my pregnancy was really bad with the twins. So
okay, yeah.
yeah,
So if anybody's listening to this and perhaps they are, let's go with someone that, thinking about beginning or starting a journey, and perhaps they want to perhaps link it into a bit of weight loss, and they want to use running as the vehicle to help them. What would you say to anybody, Amy, who's looking to start out?
I think that you need to think about, I think the biggest thing is, like I said, you need to think about the reason why you want to do it.
Yeah.
Um, and if you're wanting to, say, lose weight and do a bit of running, um, I think, yeah, the biggest thing is you need to think, think about why you're doing this, why you don't want to go back, and why what is your reason for doing this, and keep that in your mind
Yeah.
so you stick to it.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, my advice would be to, if you're on a weight loss journey, to start calorie counting. That's obviously the I am not, without sort of bringing this all into sort of weight loss sort of, Slimming World and Weight Watchers and stuff, but I really don't, if I'm honest with you, I really don't think they work.
You can be on,
Well,
you can be honest on it. You can be honest on it. You can. This is
okay,
you.
I
This
know
is
they don't,
yeah. You've got three.
because
Right.
I
Yeah.
tried Slimming World
Yeah.
before my wedding, and I actually put on weight because I think where it labels foods as bad, it just made me want them more. So I just would binge on them. I just don't think that I
Yeah.
think the best thing I ever did was to calorie count, and then I just eat everything I want, but within my calorie limit,
Yeah.
and within the deficit I was in. So I think that's my biggest thing as well, is that include all your favorites in your diet. As long as you're deciding
Yeah.
to, with the calorie counting, but that's definitely what I'd advise, is to do that. And it's as simple as calories in
Yes.
versus calories out. And then for me, I literally just put on my shoes and downloaded the Couch to 5K app and started that. And you can do it on the treadmill if you want to go to the gym, or you can do it, just go out your front door and do it. I've got people who message me on their page, on my page and my Instagram, and they just go to the park with the kids and just do a few laps with it with the kids.
Yeah.
So it's really simple. I just think it's really as simple as that, really. It doesn't need to be
Okay.
overcomplicated. I did it all with no sort of, I didn't go, I didn't even have a gym membership. I just did it all,
Yeah.
from home.
Yeah.
So it doesn't need to be complex,
Yeah.
really. So
Absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
I'm sitting on my hands here, trying not to go off on a weight loss tangent because
Yeah.
yeah, that's my. I've been coaching that for 16 years, and I've got a lot of views, and obviously my own journey as well. I think what I would say on that side of it, just to add to what you said, is we shouldn't ever be scared of saying that it is simple, because I think one of the things for me is we always need to understand that simple doesn't mean easy. So you're not, so
Yeah.
sometimes people hear what they want to hear. So that when you say simple, people hear easy. No one's saying easy. But it is, if you, the simpler it is, you either do it or you don't. And I think that's
Mm.
why I think following a simple system that allows you to become aware of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And because when people talk about calorie counting, I think what the reason why they get it wrong is because they think that it's the calorie counting that's the thing. For me, it's not. It's the awareness. If you don't know what's
Mm.
going on, it's like you can't fix it, because like my coach always says to me, he says, if you're not using data, you're using drama.
Mm.
And when you're using when you're using a food diary, you or any sort of, going back to your website, any sort of journal, you can show yourself, you can show back to yourself what's actually going on, so you're not guessing. And that's everything. That can be food, that can be emotions, that can be tracking runs. You've got evidence to be able to make a decision based on evidence, not emotion. Like, if the
Yeah.
classic we get in weight loss is my diet's okay. Well, if you don't know,
Mm.
how do you know it's okay? Because the way food is nowadays, even, I mean, I started losing weight 20 years ago. I mean, help me if it had been now, because there was no Uber Eats, there was no, you know what I mean? There was none of these, like, it was still
Mm.
hard, but it wasn't like, there wasn't the food is so readily available now. And they're making it in these factories, and they're making it sweeter, and they're making it more calories, and they're making it all these things for overconsumption. It's so difficult now to make the right choices. So yeah, don't ever be afraid of saying, none of you, whoever's listening, don't ever be afraid of just saying, yes, it is simple, because it is simple. It's never going to be easy, but it is simple. So that's the only tangent I'm going off on. Right, anyway, so just I did this after the interview of the day, and they started on weight loss, and I was like, and anyway, but no. On the running side then, because one thing I think to just hone in on, you've briefly touched on it, is I I've worked with a lot of women over the years, and to be fair, some men as well, who are quite self-conscious of that running, going for a run, because it is, you are quite, especially I think, as like, if as a female, you're quite exposed. You know, you may be
Yeah.
putting on clothes that are a little bit not flattering, that sort of stuff, and
Yeah.
going out
Yeah.
with you, as this girl can puts it, you wobbly bits. And
Mm.
so, what's the mindset there, Amy? What tips would you give there?
I think that, because I just think, like, when you were saying that, I was thinking back to when I used to go for my runs and I was like at my biggest.
Yeah.
And I think I just think it's amazing going out and doing it. And I just think I I'm not gonna lie, I did at times feel a bit self-conscious when I went out, and I was huge. And I remember going to the park run for the first time and feeling like, oh my God, like I'm huge. And
How
the
big would you have been then with that first? That I mean,
I was
you know, when you started again in 22, how 23? How big would you have been when you went to that first park
I
run?
was I was 18 stone at
Okay,
my first park run. So
right,
I was very big.
right.
And I'm 5'4" as well, to put it into perspective. So I was like, I looked huge. And I've got like pictures on my page, and I was just wearing like a baggy t-shirt, not even because I couldn't even fit in proper running
Right.
clothes, you know.
Yeah.
And I was just absolutely huge. And I was so worried about that first time, but boy, was I so wrong, because everyone was actually so
Yeah.
welcoming and
Mm.
so supportive. And I wasn't the slowest, you know, like there's obviously loads of people that just walk, that I say just walk because it's good to even just do it, be there. Everyone does the
Yeah,
same
absolutely.
distance.
Mm.
um but I think I did feel self-conscious, but it's just breaking through that and doing it, because you're in it for the long haul. You're in it for your end goal. And yeah, I mean, when I first started running, I didn't have a treadmill, so I wasn't like hiding away on the treadmill or anything. I
Yeah.
did it all out and outside. And it's just getting out there and doing it. And yeah, that's what I would say. I just like, to anyone starting who may feel like that, so many people, I felt like it before, and so many other people will do. And there'll be a lot of people like at the park runs and things who will have been in your position, and then you
Mm.
just turn out, I mean, like I am now. It changes. And I guess starting on the park run thing like that is honestly the best. It has been one of the best things for me, seeing my progress every single week.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
um was amazing, really. So would be another thing actually for me to suggest for people starting out, once you get to 5k, because it's so good to have that sort of sense of community and support with other people doing it, and it's
Did
obviously
he,
free.
go on,
So
sorry. So you did couch to 5K before you went back to parkrun.
yeah, I
And what would
finished
you
it.
say? You mentioned couch to 5K, so I was going to ask about that. What did you know, because I always, for beginners, it's an awful thing. I've never had to do. I've done it.
Yeah,
I've done that in different ways. When I started, it was different back then. But obviously, 2005. I don't think there was. You know, there wasn't even
yeah,
smartphones back
yeah,
then. So there wasn't any apps.
yeah.
So even though it's not that long ago. Anyway, so what would you talk me through Couch 5K? Is that something you'd recommend for maybe a beginner, if there's a beginner listening to this?
100%. It's
Yeah.
literally, so it takes you from couch fitness, so
Yeah.
no, minimal fitness, to running 5k in 8 weeks.
Right.
So it's an app. I guess you can download it on your phone or a
Mm.
tablet or whatever. It's an NHS. So there's a few, but the one I used was the NHS one.
Okay.
And so you run, or walk, because it mixes walking with running. You walk more than run initially, 3 times a week for no more than 30 minutes for
Hmm.
8 weeks, and it builds up. So you run more and more, sort of the length you run, and there's less walking
Yeah.
as you sort of build through the program,
Yeah.
until week 8 you run for 30 minutes or 5k.
Yeah.
So what I will say is that when you get to week 8, you might not, if you might, you'll just be running for 30 minutes, you might not be running 5k yet. My first 5k post twins was 45 minutes. So it was honestly like, I had to do half that again, to actually reach 5k. But I did just go straight then and do the
Yeah.
park run, and I
Yeah.
just went slower and paced
Of
myself.
course. Yeah.
um and obviously at that, I then at that point started running with my twins in the running buggy, which helped. So
Yeah. Of course.
um
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
so yeah.
Good. Okay. So one, I think so. If you're okay with answering this question, I want to just quickly talk about the mental health side, and kind of linking that into running, because I think, you know, someone like me, I mean, my expression is it helps control the crazy, but I think in terms of mental health and where you've come from, your place, just if you don't mind, just talking about that and running and how that's all interlinked, and how it benefited you, and if as much as you're happy to do so.
Yeah, so as I said before, I obviously started running in after my final suicide attempt. I think it was just getting out there. So I obviously did the Couch to 5K then as
Yes.
well. So I did it then, and then I did it again after my twins.
Yeah.
And it's just going. It might feel hard if you're. This is, I guess, for a listener who's struggling with their mental health
Yeah.
and perhaps struggling like I was to actually put on your trainers and get out and do it.
Mm.
And I won't. I'm not going to lie. For the first few times, it is hard to find that motivation to get out there. But it's just knowing that and believing, because afterwards, that you just feel so much better.
Mm.
I mean, even now, I can just feel a bit like, I mean, my life is so busy now with like the kids, and sometimes being a really stressful day, and I just know, oh, I need to run. It's like it's therapy for me. And it's I don't even know what it is. It's like a magic pill, but it obviously running, it releases all those endorphins,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
It
And it
does.
just it lifts your mood, and you feel like I've achieved something.
Yeah.
You can feel proud of yourself. And I think this was for me, was that I never felt like I ever achieved anything. I always felt like I was a failure. I always thought I was sort of weak and a burden to my family. But this was something I did that made me feel worthy and worthwhile, and like
Yeah.
I've achieved this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think then setting these goals of doing the marathons, and then obviously now the Ironman, it's that sort of sense of achieving these goals. Just it's for myself. It makes me feel worthwhile, like I sort of deserve to be here.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
and I think I feel sort of proud of myself after, for many years, feeling like I should
Yeah.
have, I wouldn't obviously wanted to die. So it's these it really, doing this keeps me alive, really.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
doing this keeps me well for my kids. And that's why my husband's always like, he's so supportive of it, because he knows that if I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
do it, well, I wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't be the mum I am to the kids that I am, because it keeps it just as I've said before, it just it makes me how I am now, and happy, and yeah.
And how long have you been with your husband, both in married and previous to marriage? How long have you been together?
So we got married in 2018,
Right.
and we met in 2015.
Okay.
So yeah, yeah.
Good.
So yes, I'm trying to sort of work that out. 10 years now, yeah.
Yeah.
25. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we met in that. Yes, funny enough, it was Valentine's Day 2015. So
There you
10
go.
years now.
10 years now
Nearly,
to the
yeah.
day. I think it's
Yeah.
important. I think it's the having. I think I my running joke, pun intended, is always that when I see when my kids are running around, like, 'cause mine is 6 and nearly 4, for argument's sake. They're both younger than that, but like the other week, I'm not saying this to impress anybody. The other week, I did like a 20-mile run for my marathon training, and then I came straight home, literally got changed, and then took them to the zoo, because we were going to the zoo, and like
Yeah.
I haven't got the time to be able to. I can't just go, oh, I'm just going to go and lie down for 3 hours. So literally, it was in and out. I mean, literally, it was like a recovery,
Yeah.
and I was gone. And I was fine, and I'm 48 in July, and I came from
Yeah.
a place, heavy smoker, overweight, hated myself, hated myself.
Mm,
Honestly, I hated myself. And I think that back then, about how much I hated myself,
mm.
um, to now, like, you almost feel a bit embarrassed by saying, do you know what? I'm a little bit proud of myself, and I'm not in a narcissistic,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just in a,
Yeah.
you can do it yourself.
Yeah.
I know you're big on the journal stuff, get yourself a little,
Mm.
you don't try and present it to the world, or you're not looking for validation. I think it's my message, but on back of your point there, would be it's okay to be proud of yourself. It's okay to say I'm doing all right. It's only when you start needing that from others, or using that as a crutch for others, that potentially it becomes a problem. But I just think
Mm.
absolutely, absolutely. So I appreciate that share. And obviously it sings to me, because you know when you see that transformation, it's sometimes you have to stop and think. And what I would say on the back of that is, I think anybody who's on any journey, right, because I think it's important, because sometimes we see other people's success as our failure. And if
Mhm.
just because Amy lost 10 stone in 8 months doesn't mean that you're half a stone in a month is not amazing. Because if that's, you've got to think about you day one and you day 30. So if anyone does couch to 5K, which I think is brilliant, if anybody does that, you've got to compare yourself to the person that had the, the guts and the courage, because courage is a massive, massive shift in emotion. It's a massive emotional shift to say, have the courage just to start and then to get to the end of it and look back and just go, and I just think that's just an incredible thing. So next question from me, which I think would be topical for quite a few people maybe listening, is let's talk about being a mother, and let's talk about being a mother and being a runner. And let's talk about two things: being a mother and being a runner, and also being a mother and training for specific events.
Okay, so I guess being a mum and a runner,
Yeah.
it's it's a juggle. It is a juggle.
Yeah.
Trying to fit it in is it is a bit of an art, I would say.
Okay.
Especially, so I am a mum to four children. So when I started my running journey this second time, had four children. My eldest, well, I had four children under 3 years, but when I started it, I had a 3-year-old, I had new 3-month-old twins, and I had a 1.5-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a juggle. And initially, obviously, I'm lucky. I've got a very supportive husband, but I don't have any other family locally to rely on consistently for support. To look for childcare. So for me, it was obviously quite hard having the newborn twins. They were both I was exclusively breastfeeding them. So my husband, the Couch 5K was obviously great because I was out from home for only half an hour, so he could keep the twins going, so that for that half an hour for me to do my session. I remember coming back and being like dripping in sweat and having to still then feed them because they've been screaming for that half an hour and wanting me. But it is just, if you want to do it, you can make it work. So I guess this is where it comes on to, and this is what I like to show in my on my Instagram, is that I guess it's quite rare, I guess, to have four children in under 3 years. And now, so my eldest has just turned 5, my twins have just turned 2, and my middle child is 3. So they're all very young and very little. And because I'm a stay-at-home mum, I'm not entitled to any childcare. So my eldest just went to school in September, and my middle child is entitled to 15 hours at nursery. But apart from that, so all my training has to fit in around those hours. My husband, as I said, works crazy shifts, a lot of overtime, gets stuck at work a lot. So sometimes it's like I might have something planned and then suddenly it has to change because I've hoped that he'll be able to look after the kids.
Yeah.
Also, like, a child is ill, and I guess that's it as well. Is you have to be flexible in what happens if one of them are ill. It's not always, you have to be flexible in your program. And also, I say this as well, if I have an absolutely terrible night's sleep, if you've then got like 20 miles planned the next day, it's probably not sensible to do it. You need to try and change it to another day.
Yeah.
So but then I think this is where it then goes on to training for races with having the kids. So what I do is, so I guess this is where I can sort of bring in, I have bought out, which you can only it's been released on, well, it was Monday. I released my journal, and so my journal is really a guide to improving your mental well-being, but also it's basically, if you want to achieve similar, or you might not have 10 stone to lose, but if you have a weight loss goal and you also maybe want to train for the marathon, so actually, I say that because I'm not one. As anyone who asks me about losing weight whilst training for a marathon, I don't think you can do that. I think you need to eat. You need to eat enough to train. Don't need to prevent.
Yeah, I probably, because I eat. I'll just if you don't mind, because I get this a lot, because obviously being overweight, and then people say to me, "Well, I'm scared." Like when I coach people, they're like, "I'm a bit scared because I've lost all this weight, and now I know I'm going to be doing all these miles. I'm going to be hungry," and I'm just like, "Well, you're just gonna have to park that, really, because it's not about, it's more about the quality of your food when you're marathon training, because your body needs to recover. You need to calm the inflammation down and make sure that your body's in a good enough place to recover and go again. So you can't be just eating junk all the time, and then I wouldn't try. It will naturally happen anyway, because
exactly.
Mm.
But I think so my journal is a really good way if you're just wanting to do certain exercise. It's a 12-week planner for you to be able to track all your calories. It's got tips in there for sort of weight loss, but it's also got or so you can plan your exercise for the week. So this is one thing for me, is that I have to plan everything in advance. So I have like a calendar, and I plan it. So my training program for the Ironman, I look even 2 weeks in advance and I write it all out. I plan it 2 weeks in advance. So my husband knows as well. This is when I've got my long training sessions planned on certain days. I do my long, like my 20-mile run, for instance, which I'm doing this Monday. It's the day when he's off work. So then I know that I'm not having to come back and then be like so straight back and be solo with the kids. I mean, there has been plenty of times when I've gone and run a half marathon and then he's gone to work. But my body's got used to that now. But it's just being really, it is a juggle. And for me, I have to do some where I get up at 4 a.m. and do it before the kids wake up. I'll do it in I'm lucky now, I've got a treadmill in my garage and a bit of sort of gym weights and stuff in my garage. So sometimes I'll have to do it, take that sort of the baby monitors down there with me, do it. Same when they go to bed. When I was running, when the twins would sit in a buggy, that's what I'm thinking, because they won't sit in a running buggy anymore, but I'd run with them in the double buggy, so that then for childcare, it was only, grandparents only had 2 children to look after as opposed to all 4. Or my husband could do something with the older 2, and then I'd take the twins. And it really is juggling it. But I think the other thing as well is that it's really important to say is that when you're a parent, and especially to young kids, it's not you're on and off the floor, on your knees. I rarely sit down. This is the longest I've sat down, probably a week.
You're welcome.
I just never sit down. And I think this is it, is that you then need to really look after your body, especially when in those weeks, like say if you're training for the London Marathon right now, or another marathon, Ironman like me, it's making sure you're looking after yourself around these heavy training sessions. So eating enough. I am really religious on my stretch routine after running. I foam roller, and then I've got a massage gun. I'm quite religious.
Okay, that's good.
What works for me. I mean, I might not have time to shower till for hours, because sometimes that doesn't happen. But I'm really really sort of religious almost in how my routine for making sure that I stretch properly and after runs, and eating enough. Like I said, actually, a lot of, and I think we've already said, I don't think that you can lose weight whilst you're training for an Ironman or a marathon. It's not good to put your body in a deficit whilst you're trying to train such a big thing. So you might need to up your calories, and yes, it might be a bit, especially, I'm not going to lie, sometimes I do have days where I feel, because I lost a lot of weight, and I it's my biggest fear to ever go back to how I was before.
Well, I use that. I say to people all the time, you've got to be I think you have got to be a little bit scared. Especially, I think you've always got to have it, because it's always there, Amy. Does that make sense? It's always just, you might press it down, but it's always inside you, that little gremlin that's going to go, and I think even me, 20 years down the line, it's still the short fat bloke's still in there. He's still in there. He's still
but
there.
The thing is you're not the person you were then, and your mindset has changed now. So really, you're not going to. But it's important to have that fear, really, because it keeps you on the straight and narrow. And I think that for me is where before, I wouldn't just have 1 or 2 biscuits. I'd have the whole pack, and that is where now I will just have 1 or 2, and I don't have that lack of control anymore that I did before. So, but it is I think that is one of the biggest things as well, is that you have to make sure you're fueling enough, and the right, like you said, the right stuff. So with carb loading, what are you carb loading on? Is it actually carbs, or is it just it's thinking about the right stuff? So I think that is really for me. But the one thing I'd say is that I think this is what I hope that my Instagram account shows, is that I train for these things. And I think a lot of people can think, training for a marathon and training for an Ironman, it may be a bit selfish, I say, because
absolutely,
because it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of time from your family and your loved ones. And this is the one thing I hope that I show on my account, is that you can juggle it while still being a very present parent. um that I do a lot of my training outside of times when my kids are awake. And so I make sure that it doesn't impact their day. And the training that I do when they're awake, they're doing something that I've organised with my husband. My husband's organised, so I've got him with grandparents, whether it's school and nursery. And I think this is it: is that you can do these things and achieve these things whilst also being a good present parent. And actually, it is so important that we show our children that we can do these things, and that we can achieve our dreams and our goals. And I think I know it's such an important lesson for them to learn growing up.
Absolutely.
So I think this is what I hope to show as well. Really, so it's just it's not something if you want to do a marathon, don't put it off, just do it. Like, you can fit it in really, really easily, even though people think they can't, but you can.
So that's why I've got you on. That's why I've brought you. So you can fit it in. I mean, for me on that, I think it's number one, but obviously being a parent myself, I'm not obviously a mother. I've got a very supportive wife who also works, ridiculous hours and works really hard. I think it's what I learned is it's about trade-offs, and you have to, if I have to trade off, if I have to go out early and come back and then, do that thing with the zoo, that was a trade-off, because, it's like you've ran distance. You'd rather just come back and relax. But the truth is, that if I'm going to do that, then I know I've got to come and do that, because it's a trade-off. Because at the end of the day, you are doing something that's like most people would class as a bonus to life. It's like, well, that's a bonus. It's like, it's a hobby or it's a whatever, and that's fine, but it's something you choose to do. So I think it's right to say that you can still, you have got to make, I don't like the word sacrifice, because I think that it's got a negative connotation to it. And I think I've realized this. I don't like the word sacrifice, because I just think sometimes it's like, it doesn't have to be, because it's not, is it? You're not, because it's a trade-off. It's like, well, I trade off going out drinking or gambling or whatever, whatever it is guys do, a lot of stuff that guys would do, go to the football, all these things. I trade all that off. So my thing is running. I run, I work, and I try and be the best. We all make mistakes. I mean, God, we all make mistakes. I think we're all going to, and as long as you're aware of them and you can fix them, it's fine. But that's really inspiring. On the journal thing, I will put the link to Amy's website in the description, wherever you're watching this or listening to this. So it's 4under3 marathonmum.com, and you can get the journal over there if you want to hop over there. But I'll put all that in the descriptions and so on, so you can do that. And I'd highly recommend it, especially if you're in that sort of place where you are particularly a newbie and you're nervous and you're a little bit nervous about starting, and you've got that apprehension, because it is going to be challenging, and it is always challenging at the start, and especially if you are carrying a bit more weight than you would like, it does add to that. So any tools you can use. I'm very big on sort of symbolism and using things that are going to help to prompt you and remind you. Absolutely get the resources. So, I mean, anything else from you? I'm very conscious of time here, obviously, with the situation that you're in. So anything else that you'd like to add, or anything that you want to leave the listeners or with that you feel will help? I mean, don't forget to go and follow Amy, please, at 4under3_marathon on Instagram, because her account is fantastic. So please go and follow her to watch the journey, because it'll be a fascinating one. But is there anything you want to leave our listeners with?
The biggest thing I'd say is that it's always been, if you want to do it, you can do it. And it's only you that's holding yourself back. And if you've got something in the back of your mind, so you either want to run a marathon or you want to lose weight, or don't write yourself off. You can do it. No matter your situation, you can do it. And I guess that's it. It's just have the courage to change, because I guess my situation, I really hope that it just shows people that you can achieve what it was the impossible. And for me, really, it was impossible from years ago to how I am now. I really hope it shows that. And I hope, I just want to say to people, just make that first step in deciding you're going to start, and then it will just flow from there. So that's it really. But thank you so much.
No, it's been a pleasure. No, it's been an absolute pleasure actually having you on and talking to you and taking the time. So I'll say this. I'll say, mate, please make sure you go and follow Amy. Again, I'll put the links in the description, but please go and follow Amy at 403_marathon mom on Instagram. Make sure you get to the website and have a look at the journals, and I'm sure that you'll get benefit from that, particularly if you are starting out, and particularly if you are on a weight loss journey. Because I know a lot of people tend to, because of my background as well, gravitate towards me. As always, don't forget to follow me on 12 Months to Marathon on Instagram. Also, you can please subscribe to the podcast. Please like the podcast, share the podcast, do all that sort of stuff. I'd appreciate it, particularly this one. I think this one could help certainly a lot of people in more ways than you can imagine. And also, we talked about a few subjects there where if you go to, again, in the show notes in the description, 12 Months to Marathon Plus, which is my very low cost paid podcast membership, there is a ton of resources about carb loading and about all that sort of things you can get. And also, if you do want to manage your calories, marathon training, there are ways of doing it. It's not recommended, but there are ways of doing it, but it's just something to think about. That's available as well. But for now, Amy, thank you very much again. I do appreciate it. Make sure you go and give all the love to Amy over on Instagram for doing this for us today. And thank you very much. And I'll speak to you all again very soon indeed. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.